welcome back to our third season of our Miss Scarlet Summer, and we're here with the finale. Yeah. I'm Christina Zeiders.
And I'm Tom Downing.
If you love watching or listening to Postscript, join in the conversation. You can leave us a review on your favorite podcast app, or leave us a comment and subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/@WITF
And if you're also interested in supporting what we do, please consider making a contribution to WITF. You can easily go to WITF.org/Mosaic and you can give a gift of support.
Yep, $1 to 50 cents, whatever you can give. We appreciate it, and we thank you for your support. So are you ready to get into the finale?
Let's go. Yeah, the Jewel of the North.
Jewel of the North.
Episode 6.
So in our opening, Eliza arrives at her office and she finds a package waiting for her.
Yeah,
and
all wrapped up.
Yep, she places it on her desk. She opens the window. It's like a normal day.
Yep.
And Nash...
It's rather large
It is
package.
a large package,
Yeah.
but I mean, if I get a box in the mail, I'm excited about it too. So she comes back to the box and she starts opening it, but Nash...
There's like we hear Eliza, and Nash like bursts into the room.
Yeah,
and
everyone's just bursting into her office all the time. This is also just a normal day.
Yeah, that's true. It happens a lot with her office. Eliza's like, "Can't you make an appointment like a normal person?" And like Nash is like, "Do not open that."
Yeah.
Put it down on the desk slowly.
Yeah,
and like
handle it with care.
We're like, okay, is this a bomb?
You immediately went.
Nash
there,
is like visibly disturbed, and Eliza puts it down, and Nash opens it, and Nash says, "Oh, thank God."
Oh yeah. She goes, "Oh, thank God, it's a bomb, Patrick."
It's a bomb. And
but yeah, he's like, but it won't go off. So
No.
the timer isn't linked to the detonator, and we find out he got the same thing in the mail too. Well, not the mail. It just
Dropped
appeared
off,
on their doorstep.
And then Eliza's like, "Why just the two of us? Like, why did we get these bombs?"
Right.
And Nash is like, "It's not just the two of us."
Right.
And so we cut to Scotland Yard and we see Nash, Eliza, and Moses.
And Moses doesn't want to be at Scotland Yard. He never wants to be there.
No.
So yeah, we find out that the Patrick and Moses both wanted to just investigate this on their own and not involve the police.
Yes.
But Eliza is there because it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
And Eliza always does the right thing. She asks him, like, "Where's your bomb?" And he said he left to Moses.
Yeah.
He said he left it at home. He didn't think bringing a box of dynamite to Scotland Yard would be a good idea.
Not a good idea.
So,
no,
yeah,
it's
smart.
Probably wouldn't go over so well with Moses being
Yeah. And then William greets them and takes them back to his office where he too has a bomb package.
Bombs for everyone.
Bombs for everyone. But he says that he knows exactly who's dropping the packages. Yeah. And that's when we cut to the title sequence.
Boom. Title sequence. So then
explosion.
Yeah, it's flashbulb, but yeah, we're good. And so after the title sequence ends, we find out we were back with William and everyone at the office, and William's bomb had a message inside it.
Yeah, it did.
Written in Irish Gaelic.
Yep.
And it's I'm gonna forgive me for this. Should I try?
You're gonna try?
I'm gonna try.
You're braver than I am.
I tried to write it down phonetically in my notes, and I can't even say phonetically. So, Tamad ak kama sul urt. And that's, it means we're watching you.
We're watching you.
Ooh.
Like, that's how every good horror movie starts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like people are watching us too.
Yeah, people are watching us. It's a little creepy.
Anyway, so.
Yeah, William believes that he's ultimately the target because of this note. And he thinks that the bombs are connected to the movement for Irish home rule.
Yep.
And Moses points out, in case you haven't noticed, I don't work for Scotland Yard.
Yeah, why me?
But William thinks that they've all received bombs because these people have followed William and they know his associates. So they're targeting all of his associates.
And we also find out that since Moses was working for Nash and Nash was doing work for William. There's a connection directly there.
There were lots of connections here. Also, William has worked with Moses.
Yeah.
It's usually because Eliza's in danger. But
reluctantly. I don't think there was a direct connection.
No.
And because like when Moses reveals that he was working for Nash, like Eliza gives him like an eyeball.
Yeah, an evil eye.
He's like, it's for the money, you know?
I just go where the money is.
Yeah, so...
So we find out William has called in the head of the Irish branch to help with the investigation, which was probably his first mistake.
Yeah,
and we find out that the man who's heading up the Irish branch is Hudson.
Oh, so it's interesting. So after he says he's bringing in the Irish branch, Eliza asks anyone we know, and then we cut to see who's coming. Like it does that thing where it's like, hey, we're going to talk about something and then we show something. Like the show does this all the time. And so we see an Irishman apparently walking into Scotland Yard and meets William, and his name's Hudson. And he like they introduce like he's like Hudson and Wellington, like back and forth.
They don't like each other.
And there's a guy behind him with a mustache. And immediately I'm like, wow, they kind of look like Holmes and Watson. Which just the way that they were dressed and the way they were in there. And I was like wondering if they're going to have like a kind of like a Sherlock Holmes-ish kind of character.
No, these people are completely incompetent.
No,
so.
they definitely, that is off the table. So Hudson's men all apparently, Hudson's very braggy about his men because they all know Gaelic. And Hudson paraphrases Sun Tzu's Art of War, to
William. He's, of course, you've read it. And we find out, of course, William has not because he's just not a book person. We've learned this multiple times.
Yes, he's not a book person.
He's not a reader. So, that's okay.
Sort of insults William in that way.
And we find out that there's they have this kind of rivalry because they were in the running for the same job. I guess William was going to head up the Irish branch at some point, or was in the running to head up the Irish branch.
Yeah.
He didn't get the job. Hudson did, and Hudson's like the best man won.
Oh yeah, he's like, really insulting.
So rude.
And I put a note here that Hudson's like Arabella to Eliza, but instead it's to William because like he kind of insults, but through like not direct insults, and William just takes it because he's like, I don't care. Like I mean, he does care, but he doesn't like let on that he cares. The best man and all that. So and Hudson, we find out that Hudson's a jerk, basically. Yeah,
Hudson's a jerk, and he's taking control of the entire investigation.
Full control. Full chain of command, which William reluctantly just allows because there's paperwork that allows him to do that. And he went through the proper channels. But William is given the task of supervising the retrieval of the packages, which feels, not like that important of a job. A little more menial.
They're bombs that are not supposed to go off. So, but Hudson does the interviews. And so this is where...
Oh, I will do the interviews. We cut right to the first interviewee.
First interviewee is Eliza.
Yes.
Eliza's first. And Hudson points out that she's the only female private investigator in London.
Has to be pointed out every episode.
Right. You're a what? And perhaps it's because she has an unusually close relationship with the inspector that she received this bomb.
Involved with the inspector, perhaps.
And she tells him that their relationship is purely professional. And he respects her ability, insight, and tenacity. Yeah. One N in tenacity.
One N. Just to get that clear, because she doesn't want that to be written down in the notes.
Right. And then, so then we flash to...
Well, before that, I was thinking, I was like, is she saying this to just have it written down, or is she also saying this so that William will have to read it in the notes?
That's entirely possible.
Anyway, so we cut from her saying like about the tenacity and it's Nash because I love how this is edited. It's like cut back and forth, intercut. So Nash.
Yeah, well, they start answering like the questions,
each other's questions. Nash laughs at tenacity.
Yeah.
But he says it's true though about Eliza that she has tenacity.
I mean Nash truly believes in that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he says she's good. And Hudson says, you are Irish, are you not, Mr. Nash? And Nash says, if you think this is due to my heritage, you're barking up the wrong tree. This has nothing to do with where I was born.
Yeah, and where were you born?
And then we cut.
And we cut to Moses, who says Manchester.
Which is
and he's like, Manchester. The parish of Manchester in Jamaica. And they're asking him, how long have you lived in this country? And he goes, hard to say. And what do you mean by that? You know when something is easy to say? Well, it's the opposite of that.
The opposite of that. I love that.
Love him.
Yeah, that was really good by Moses.
So Hudson asks Moses for a complete list of everyone who's hired him.
Yep.
So I don't know if they think it's the Irish. Like, how is Moses he suspect in this? I don't understand.
Yeah, it kind of cuts back and forth, and Moses starts to say, "I know you have to ask these questions, but and it cuts to Eliza saying, "Wasting your time. Better ask why they weren't set to explode," which is a good point.
Yeah, why were these bombs sent? But they're not supposed to explode. That's strange.
Hudson's just completely dismissive about that logical point that Eliza's making,
and then Eliza she threatens to get her own answers.
Well, before that, she says, "Why send a message in one to William?" If it was set to explode, because it would have exploded the message, and so that even adds more to the fact that
none of the bombs were set to explode.
No.
And so she says, "I will get my own answers," and he says, "I'm afraid you will not."
Oh yeah.
And then we
cut to outside, and Eliza says, they suspended my license.
Yep.
And she just starts like talking about all the things that happened there. And Moses is there as well. And she eventually notices that Moses is being quiet.
Yeah, he's very distracted. And he's quiet. And he says, well, you don't give me a choice otherwise. Because she just keeps talking. She's talking about Patrick still being inside because he's Irish.
Yeah.
But she asks, is everything all right? And we find out everything is not all right in Moses' world.
Yeah, we cut to Moses drinking some whiskey. So we are like,
now we're in a bar.
Yeah, he's telling her, he's giving more information. So a few years back in Jamaica, certain events played out so that Moses had to leave.
Yes.
And he planned to keep moving around from place to place.
His goal was to just keep moving around so these people couldn't find him.
But he's been in London for 3 years.
Yep.
And he thinks that maybe it might be a good time to move on.
Yeah. So we're in the 3rd season. She must have just met him after he moved to London.
Yes.
Yeah. She says, well, are these the people who are after you?
Yeah, and he goes, the bomb.
Right. And he says, no, bombs aren't their style. They like to look at you when they kill you.
See your face when they.
Yeah.
So Moses.
His concern.
He's concerned more about Hudson because he's worried that if Hudson sends a telegram to Jamaica to follow up on the interview that he just conducted with Moses,
very bad men will find out that he's in London.
Yeah, and so that means he would have to move.
Yep.
So then we cut from that information, which means that Moses might be leaving.
Right, which is... I forgot all about this, and I'm like, they very clearly are leaving it up in the air as to whether Moses will be back for season 4, and I'm just like, oh no, it didn't even dawn on me the first time I watched. It's just a part of my life.
so we have that information, and we cut to it's raining, and Eliza's walking outside to her office in the rain, like it's just coming down. She's like trying to keep a little bit off of her, and she sees a paper notice sign on the door,
right? That
entry forbidden, and it's signed by Hudson. She can't even enter her own office.
Right, she tears it down.
Hudson is just wrecking like everything. He's wrecking William's situation, like taking over and like all this stuff. Eliza just rips down the sign.
She goes in
anyway.
Her office is completely ransacked. Papers everywhere. And Patrick arrives around the same time.
Yeah. Nash is there, and Nash says they did the same thing to my place. They took everything, even
his clock. Which seems like a strange thing to take.
And they also suspended his license for detective work.
So neither one of them is actually licensed to do any sort of private investigating right now.
And Eliza complains like, "We're victims here. We don't know more than they do." And Patrick Nash is like, "Well, that may not be exactly true.
Well, I may know some things." So while Patrick helps Eliza clean up her office, which was very nice of him, by the way, kudos. He's like helping her tidy up, moving her furniture around.
He's developing as a character.
Giving him some credit where it's due.
Yeah.
He asks if she read about this train robbery of the Jewel of the North. The
name of the episode.
Right. And so the police so far have made a mess of the investigation. We find out that the Jewel of the North was robbed about 20 miles outside of London. And basically the police are fighting over whose jurisdiction it's in.
Yeah.
And the train company is obviously upset because nothing's being investigated, or if they are investigating, it's just completely botched. So when Nash found out about this frustration, he offered his services. And Eliza knows that found out means that he bribed somebody for information.
And he also notes that the train robbery is similar to one in Bristol a few months back that was carried out by the Irish nationalists.
So this is where the police are getting this like tie, why they think it's connected. So it's not completely out.
It's not just the Gaelic note. There actually might be more to this than it seems, as there usually is in these episodes. So he suggests that somebody wants to scare them off the investigation. And he says that Eliza received the bomb because Nash has implied that she's working for him. Oh, yeah. He just straight up lied. He said that she works for him already.
And apparently he does it all the time. Because a female investigator, no one would ever suspect them going undercover.
Yeah.
So it's a selling point for him to use.
That's why people love the idea. That's why people always love the idea of a female detective. Yeah. And like Eliza's like, Always? Because
you're a what?
Yeah. How often do you tell this lie? And Nash is like, I wouldn't have to if you came and worked with me.
Yeah.
And then he lays out two choices that he sees as options. Let Hudson blunder around,
for months,
or we, he and Eliza can take the initiative.
Right, find out who's behind it themselves.
And so then we cut to Scotland Yard. There's lots of men walking in and out. William sees Fitzroy and says, "Who are they?" And Fitzroy says, "More of the Irish branch, more of Hudson's men."
Yeah, it's like they're just invading Scotland Yard. They're like everywhere.
Oh.
Hudson says the Home Office believes further attacks are imminent, even though these bombs were not set to detonate. Yep. And he's been told to expand the operation, and he's taken over William's office.
Completely. There's multiple people in there.
Yeah,
it's so invasive.
Men working everywhere.
It's really weird.
So William's mad because they actually pulled Fitzroy to do their work.
Yeah, without
going through William. So he says, if you want one of my men, then you come through me. And there's kind of this
and that's when
showdown.
Yeah, there's a showdown, and it also shows that it's and he also reminds Hudson that this is still his office.
Right.
And Hudson's like, yeah, about that, and hands him this letter. Basically, he just keeps getting these letters that are authorization to take over.
Official paperwork is filed.
So we don't really see the resolution of that, but we assume it's okay, it's official. And William, because he's a
rule follower.
He does.
Yeah, he follows the rules to an extent.
Yeah. In this episode, he breaks a little bit.
When there's stupid rules, he breaks them.
Yeah. So we cut to Eliza's after that.
Oh, yeah. William arrives.
At first, I thought it was Ivy making the soup.
No,
and then I was like,
Eliza.
wait a sec. And then it's Eliza. Eliza's making soup.
The soup doesn't look that bad.
No.
Visibly. But apparently it smells dreadful.
And we find this out because William walks in and is like, what's that smell? And Eliza's like, cooking.
And
so happy about it.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. And I wrote in my notes, I was like, so supportive.
Yeah.
William's always supportive.
So supportive.
He's like, oh God. William shares that he's been sent home because.
Well, they're forcing him to take a leave of absence.
Yeah.
It's not just sent home. He's not working right now. And Hudson thinks it's because William was a target that he may be a
target
threat
again and might endanger the other people at Scotland Yard.
It's plausible, I guess.
William says that the man is a fool. I wouldn't trust him to find a lost dog. I love that quote. So
he doesn't trust anybody to do anything. To be completely honest,
true.
William doesn't trust anybody.
Yeah.
We find out too that Hudson is ex-military and a rule follower.
Oh, yeah.
They mentioned ex-military, and I'm just like,
oh yeah, there's a lot. The Crimea War,
all
that stuff. So, and then William switches topics and says that really does smell dreadful. Yeah. And I wrote it again, supportive.
Yeah, so supportive.
So supportive.
Just make her a freaking egg, William.
Eliza says, why are you here? Because she's getting a little frustrated.
Right.
And William wants to work with Eliza to get answers quicker than Hudson can. And William stresses secrecy.
Yeah, how secret it needs to be.
No one else
can know.
Should know. And then he notices, that's a lot of potatoes you're cooking for one person. And then Eliza leads William into the other room where Nash and Moses have been the entire time.
Yep.
And they had actually given up on Eliza making them food.
Well, Patrick Nash, he went out for food because he thought it would be safer.
Yeah, safer.
Which, really actually supportive because he's just like, she can't cook. I'm just going to go get food for us.
It's a little bit of both. But and I wrote down that this is it's not the love triangle and it's not the Pentagon like normally because Fitzroy isn't there. So it's a rectangle.
It's a rectangle right now. It's a rectangle of investigators.
The whole whatever shape it is minus Fitzroy is assembled in this one room.
Well, Fitzroy does get involved in this investigation too. So they all have to work together.
Oh, and I love how Eliza it doesn't even matter. Just immediately takes charge.
Yep. So Eliza needs to know everything they each know. And just as Moses goes to take a bite of the croissant or whatever Nash had brought back,
well,
she looks at him.
He asks them, or she asks them to tell her everything.
Yeah.
And both Nash and William start talking over each other, and Moses is just eating there, so she just ignores them
one at a time,
and she just goes right to Moses. But Moses is mouthful of the food because he was focused on that.
He was hungry. I get it.
Yeah.
So Moses fills us in. The Jewel of the North is a daily service that usually carries passengers and mail. But the day of the robbery, it was carrying a lot of cash.
Yeah.
So Moses knows because there's a lot of cash on board. Nash jumps in and says that the money was being sent to a construction site near Liverpool. It was wages for new workers who were hired to build railway lines. Yep. And William brings it in with the train was stopped about 20 miles outside of London, which we already knew, for a scheduled stop to allow an express train to pass through. And that's when all the robbers boarded. And someone knew exactly when and where the train was going to stop.
Yeah. And at this point, Eliza again takes charge and says that Patrick offers that since he has connections, he can still maybe get the info from the train company.
Right. Well, because they don't know his license has been suspended. Yep.
And so Eliza takes charge and just dictates, says, Patrick, you and Moses head to their office.
Yep.
And then she and William will go to the bank that delivered the wages. And so Eliza's definitely running the show.
Right.
She's
William
there
says, who put you in charge?
Well, and I love the way that this shot is framed because she's at one side and all three of them are on the other side of
behind a couch or something. I can't remember.
So it's just like the power dynamic is really clear in this. And they all look at her and she's like, what? And William's like, who put you in charge?
And she's like, well, someone has to be. And she's just smiling.
Yeah.
And she walks out of the room and the guys all just look at each other and smile and follow her.
Yeah. Well, I think only Moses is smiling because the rest are like, okay, they're
Patrick
resigned.
Nash is always
resigned.
He was smiling too. Yeah. I think they all are resigned to the fact that she's going to be in charge.
Yes. They know her.
They know her well. So we follow William and Eliza first to the bank.
And they're
on their way to the bank.
Yeah, they're outside the house. They're walking, and William asks, "How are you?" And Eliza says her license has been suspended, and there's bombs
being sent to her doorstep. Like she's had better days.
Yeah, that's right. And then William's like just making conversation, and Eliza says
he points out that they haven't been having conversations lately.
They've been so busy.
Yeah.
And at this point, Eliza asks.
That's her out.
Yeah. Well, Eliza asks, how is Arabella?
Yeah.
And William says, very well. And then Eliza kind of changes the subject.
Right. She asks, her follow-up question is, how much money was on the train?
Yeah.
And so William brings up that Eliza would know how Arabella is if she accepted her dinner invitations. And Eliza then reiterates that she's very busy.
She's so busy, no time for dinner.
No time for dinner.
And so from there we cut to Lambeth and Westminster Bank. So we're at the bank now.
Yes.
And William says last Thursday the Northwest Rail Company withdrew £4,000, and the bank man, who we find out is Mr. Bamford, says £4,108 and 12 shillings. Yeah, very specific. So he's a by the books
well, you got to be meticulous when you're in banking.
Very much so.
He's frustrated that he needs to answer their questions again because obviously the police have been involved,
and he doesn't really know that they're not licensed or authorized to do this.
He's just assuming that they are authorized and licensed. But he reiterates that his men saw nothing suspicious and that no member of his staff, past or present, were involved in the robbery. And he gets up to get them to leave, and Eliza.
She lays on. She just straight up lies. She lies about being she mentions Basil Sinclair,
a personal friend.
So he's the person who's the reporter or owner of the Illustrated
Police News. Yep. And she says, I assume the bank would like to avoid any bad publicity,
bad press.
So here she is pulling out the blackmail.
And what's interesting is she's straight up lying, and in this case, William actually is. Supportive.
He goes along with it, even though Basil Sinclair is his least favorite person in the whole world.
He's pretty awful. Mr. Bamford is very, very blunt and says, "Are you threatening me?"
Yeah.
And Eliza's like, "Yes." And so he caves. He says, "Very well. I'll give you the list of everyone that was working the day of the robbery." And so at that point, we cut from Eliza and William to Moses and Nash at the train company.
Main office.
And the man there, a man by Lyndhurst is his name.
Lyndhurst, and
he also gets a bomb.
Yeah, so Nash asks Lyndhurst for a list of all the men working that day of the robbery, but he has a package that looks a lot like their bomb, and Moses is like, "Don't open it."
Yeah.
And so
Nash opens it.
Yeah, they open it gently, and it is a bomb.
Yep.
Again, not set up to explode. So. Back at Eliza's. Did I miss anything with that?
No,
because I was frantically taking notes
got
at
it.
this point.
And so if we leave them, we're back at Eliza's. It's nighttime.
Yes. And they're all talking about
the bomb.
It
has the same wiring.
Same as theirs. The serial number's been removed.
Yep.
And William says that's to make it easier to sell in the black market. So I feel like he's kind of mentoring Eliza a little bit too, which is an interesting turn of events.
Give and take a little bit back and forth.
Nash has been through all of the names from the bank and the railway, and he doesn't recognize any of them. And he mentions it would be a lot easier if he still had his files from his office that William's friends at Scotland Yard took.
They're no friends.
There's no friends.
Yeah. And then someone asked, I forget who, what time is it?
Moses asks what time it is, and it's 9.
And that's William's like, damn, I had dinner plans. Arabella's probably not going to be too happy. So William leaves.
Eliza tells him to go, that they'll pick up in the morning. Yeah.
And she has like a look on her face. And Nash says, your inspector's late for his lady friend? And Eliza says, how should I know? And Moses says, you know who we could take this to? And so this is a segue. So we're like, okay, because talking about the bomb. They have the bomb right in front of us.
Because they're trying to figure out where this bomb is coming from.
And Eliza's like, is he open this late? And Moses is like, he's always open.
Yeah. So I know we're going to Solomon's Emporium before we even get there.
It's still in the middle of the night. We cut right to Solomon's. He's looking at the bomb with a magnifying glass.
Yeah. He goes, interesting. Mm-hmm. And Eliza's like, do you mean interesting like interesting, or interesting like you want more money?
he's like both. Yeah. So he takes the bomb away to look at it closer, and Eliza takes this time with Moses there to ask him about him leaving.
Right.
And Moses says, "Oh, good."
Yeah, he's nervous about somebody finding him, and he says that Nash is opening an office in Paris and has offered Moses a job.
Yep.
And he probably speaks fluent French because this is Moses.
Moses is a man of many talents.
Yeah.
So Eliza says, you can't run forever, and Moses says he lives one day to the next. And Eliza's like, I couldn't live like that.
Yeah,
and Moses,
she's very meticulous, and she has drive and a vision and a plan.
And Moses says, that's your problem. Like, that is your problem, that you can't live from one day to the next. And so, she's very defensive. So Solomon comes back and he interjects and interrupts their back and forth. And he has this bombshell of information. He asks
who made the bomb, and they mention that the police think it's the Irish Republicans. And he's just like,
nope.
No. Nope. He's like very, very sure.
Oh, no question in his mind that these are not made by the Irish.
He said the construction, the wiring, the whole works is wrong.
Yeah. They don't, it's not as polished as that. They use like an alarm clock and a gun, and this doesn't have that. These bombs are military grade.
Yeah. And so this is when I'm like, ex-military.
Oh, you made the. I didn't even.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking it was Hudson.
Yeah, I did think that he was involved initially because he was taking over everything.
Yeah.
But I didn't. At this point, I wasn't thinking that. No. So that's a good point.
Military grade. I was just like
military grade. And so they ask about the notes, and Solomon's like, I don't know about the note, but all he can say is that this bomb is not Irish.
Right.
Made.
So I don't know. It's a diversion. Why was this note put in?
Have to figure that out. So we cut from them in Solomon's to William
to the
arriving.
House.
yeah, really. So William knocks on the door. It's Arabella's house. Yep. It's late, very late. Arabella seems to take his lateness rather well until William mentions that he was working with Eliza.
Yeah, he apologizes for losing track of time. And so she had actually been waiting at the restaurant for him, but she decided to go home because she thought it would look bad to dine alone in front of her customers. And side note, I love eating by myself. I don't know. That's like my favorite thing in the world.
Oh.
And she says, he apologizes, and she goes, it's fine. I'm not one to use guilt as a weapon. That's for my mother. And she asks what he was working on. And he says a manhunt with some private detectives. I'm like, is he going to tell her? And that's when he says,
does.
Including Eliza.
And so Arabella kind of tries to shrug it off. And like Arabella offers him a late meal because there's still food there. And
right. Her cook prepared something. So they're going to go. They're going to go eat.
They're going to go eat, and it's going to be delicious.
Yeah.
And then William laughs. He chuckles to himself that Eliza tried to make soup before.
So here is Eliza again.
And Arabella's visibly mad that William is talking about Eliza, and William is oblivious.
Completely oblivious.
Doesn't know. You just don't.
He doesn't know he's doing it because Eliza's just been part of his life, and So
there's that. So we cut from them in that doghouse situation there to Scotland Yard.
Yep.
And so William is talking to Hudson, and William offers to come. This is the next day, and William offers to come back to the investigation, and Hudson essentially says no.
Right.
in a lot of words.
He says he has plenty of men. They're making good progress. But then one of his men shows him a picture of one of the suspects, quote unquote. And he goes, not that one. He's dead.
Yeah.
So they're obviously not doing a great job if they're considering
suspects already, men. And they're not. They're just like they're really focused on this Irish thing because they are the Irish branch,
and
they
assume because it has those connections to the robbery in Bristol, I guess they're just laser focused.
And so William takes this moment to ask Hudson, "Hey, can I have a drink?" And there's like a bottle of whiskey on the windowsill.
Right, it's William's whiskey.
Yeah, it's his.
Exactly where it is.
And so Hudson's like, "It's your office," and so he takes a drink.
But is it his office?
And William leaves, and on his way out, Hudson offers him some unsolicited advice. Yeah. He says, "Drinking in front of the men, you must be above reproach." So in other words, like you're so good that you can actually just drink in front of your men. Like it's not. Like,
is that what you got out of it? I thought he was saying that basically he looks like unrespectable to his men.
No, he was. Okay. He was doing this thing like Arabella would say.
Oh,
where
true.
It's a nice thing.
Connection.
Here's this nice compliment that's actually like an insult
taken
underhanded.
A different way. Yeah.
Yeah. So you must be above.
I must be really good at reading those underhanded.
You must be so great at your job that you can just like do this and drink in front of your men. So then he says no hard feelings, and he puts his hand out to shake William's hand.
He won't shake his hand.
William just like
walks
ignores
away.
it and leaves, and he
but
goes
later
outside.
We find out there's a good reason for this.
So he walks. I didn't even think of that because okay. So he walks outside of Scotland Yard, and Fitzroy's there.
And they're having a secret powwow.
Yes, he hands Fitzroy the key, which he had in his hand, which is why he didn't shake his hand. Now I didn't get that.
He had it in his hand.
So he had the key to the office archives in his hand. He gives it to Fitzroy, and he asks Fitzroy to get the files and case report of the train robbery from the office.
Right. Well, Fitzroy asks him what he needs to do. So Fitzroy's already in.
He's in
like,
this.
These people are bungling it, and now you're out, and I don't like this.
Yeah. And then Fitzroy asks, "Where did you get the key?" And William says, "Where it always is, under the whiskey bottle," which is why he drank some whiskey. And it was all a ploy, the whole thing.
So before we continue, I think now's a good time to take a quick break.
Excellent.
And when we come back, we will meet up with Eliza and William on the street somewhere in London.
Somewhere. Welcome back. We just left off, and now we're with Eliza and William. They're in she's in a stagecoach of some kind, and William brings her the case notes from Fitzroy from the train robbery.
Yeah, he hands over the case notes willingly.
They're working well together.
We're seeing some growth here.
Yeah. So the file says that there were 5 men on the security, but Bamford, who said that there were...
He oversaw the entire money exchange.
Said there were 4 men. So Eliza's like, why would he say that? And as soon as they do this where they ask a question and they cut right
to Bamford.
There's Bamford, Bamford's office, and he says, it was an oversight.
It was an oversight.
The 5th man apparently was a Jack Fenton, and then they have the information that Jack Fenton had prior convictions for armed robbery, and Bamford's like, I never heard of him, and Eliza's like, that's so strange since he's your brother-in-law. And Bamford's like, totally caught in a lie.
Yeah.
So Bamford starts over.
Right.
And he says that
he decides to tell the truth this time.
Yeah. So apparently Fenton was in the army and married his sister Peggy. And
he never liked him,
no,
by the way.
But he would offer him certain jobs when they were short-staffed. And Eliza asks, was he involved in the robbery? And Bamford says,
he honestly doesn't know.
I don't know. But he does give 3 locations that Fenton might be at.
Yeah, he gives some addresses.
And the last was the jewelers. And he mentions that the jewelers like hiring ex-cons.
Because they know all the tricks. Yeah. Like, that's such an odd thing.
So William's I need names and addresses.
Yes.
And so that's when we cut away from that. So Eliza hands a slip of paper to a boy. This is outside. And this reminds me of what she did back in season 1, episode 1.
Yeah, she uses little dudes on the street to deliver her messages. I guess they were messenger boys. I assume this is a thing that they actually did.
It's like text messaging in the 1900s.
Right,
I guess.
just run, give it to a very energetic child to take it.
Just go,
run as fast as you can.
So the message is a note to Nash and Moses through Nash that they're supposed to go hit the pubs and the guest house locations, and William and Eliza will check out the jewelers.
Right, because I guess they think that's their best bet.
And they need a cover story for the jewelers.
Oh yeah, I'm like, this is where things are gonna get interesting.
Eliza says, I know just the thing.
Yeah.
And so we cut to the jewelers, and Eliza is...
She is pretending to be part of a couple.
Yeah.
She goes, oh, I can really choose any ring I want. She's like, oh, I feel like a kid in a candy shop. And she's like acting completely unlike herself, probably more like the woman that William would like to marry.
Perhaps.
Maybe a little ditzier. I don't know.
The jeweler asks how long they've been engaged.
And Eliza kind of looks back at William like, oh, I don't know what to tell him.
Well, no. She doesn't hesitate. She says,
she looks back at him like she's hesitant. But then she goes, 4 days, 3 hours,
that's
9 minutes.
Right. Yeah. She has it down to the minutes because that's a thing that people do. Real people do that. So tell him how you propose, dearest. And she's totally putting William on the spot.
Yeah. He's like, oh, well, he doesn't want to hear that.
Yeah. And William just gives a generic proposal description.
Yeah, I got down on one knee.
So boring.
She said, yes.
Yeah. And
and she's like, no, tell him the whole story, including the part about the doves. And he goes, oh, doves.
Doves.
There were doves.
There were doves. William says, well, we were in Regent's Park by the boating lake, and my fiance had made
a scrumptious picnic. She's really the most wonderful cook.
Yeah, which is a deep dig into Eliza because she is not a good cook. And I wrote down nice in my notes, like this is good. He's getting back at her for putting him on the spot.
Right.
Eliza rolls her eyes at the wonderful cook comment.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I laid a blanket out under the cherry tree. And the blossoms.
The tone starts to change partway through this.
Yes. Yep. And Eliza starts to it becomes a little more real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so
maybe he's imagined doing this before. I don't know.
Perhaps. The blossoms were in full bloom, and there were 2 white doves nestled in the branches above.
Yep.
And I realized that I couldn't have wished for a more perfect moment. So I took her hand and told her that she was the most beautiful woman that I have ever seen, and whatever else I was unsure of in my life, the one thing that I knew was that we were meant to be together.
This is why I'm watching this at work and I'm like, don't start crying, Christina. Oh my God, do not cry right now.
They are like making eye contact.
There's probably some soft music in the background that I'm ignoring because I'm just like, oh God, now I'm Team William again.
It's like doing like a little bit of a zoom in on each of them and their faces. It's getting closer, and Eliza says, I never knew you were so romantic.
Such a romantic, yeah.
And William's like, apparently so. And Eliza turns to the jeweler.
None of these stones are quite right. I need a larger stone.
Yeah.
When's your next shipment?
Yeah,
like
she's all
moment
business.
broken.
Moment broken.
Yep.
So then we cut from them to Nash and Moses are at the pub.
Yep, they're checking out one of the locations.
And no one's heard of Jack Fenton. But then
a man walks in
who fits the description.
Everybody gets quieter.
It
gets real quiet.
And
not completely silent.
This guy's a big guy.
Yeah.
So
and Nash knows immediately that it's Jack.
Yeah.
And says, what was the description again? He matches exactly the description. Heavy set, dark hair, beard, which is very vague.
Very vague.
Yeah.
So then Moses looks at Jack Fenton and says, this won't be easy. And then asks, you any good with your fists? And Nash says, isn't that what I pay you for?
Isn't that what you're for?
And then Moses says, this is going to be a 2-man job. And Nash says, I used to box for County Whitlow. And we cut from that because he gets up and they're walking in and you're like, okay, Nash is going to get into it. And we cut immediately to him getting like knocked out into the street.
Thrown out into the street.
Oh, and so outside, Fenton is giving them both a rough time. They maybe
Moses is like on his back at one point. He's throwing punches. They're not even affecting.
It's this huge scuffle. Yeah, it's just bouncing off. Doesn't seem to be. And they almost get him somewhat
subdued.
But then Hudson and his Irish men.
Well, Nash slams his cane into.
Oh, and breaks it across his back. I forgot about that.
Across his back, and the cane just breaks
shatters.
In half.
Yeah, this Fenton guy is like he's a big guy.
He's built.
So Hudson and his men interrupt, and Fenton gets away, and they're yelling after him. So they actually were onto him. They knew about him. So the police aren't completely incompetent.
There's some sort of overlap. They're following some sort of clues.
So he gets away, but then Nash and Moses are arrested for interfering in the investigation and obstruction of justice.
So just real quick, you know how I'm suspecting Hudson? This is where I'm like, is Hudson involved?
Yeah.
And now he's arresting them to get them off of his trail. I was so wrong.
You were like focused on.
I was so wrong. wrong.
I was not thinking that, but you're totally right. It could have been.
This is the first time I had such a strong feeling, and I was completely wrong. Anyway.
That usually is my job. So I'll be like, oh, it's this, and then no. So and then Nash, as he's getting pulled away, he's like, I really like that cane.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is
it's the three heads of the British Empire. And they're actually after Nash. Remember when he picked out his cane?
I thought it was a different cane. I looked at it.
I know. I rewound it 3 times.
Really?
And
it is the same one.
The same one.
I actually thought it was
so
not.
I thought there was some irony there because he's being investigated by the British Empire because he's Irish.
Oh.
And remember when he picked the cane, Eliza's like,
yeah.
But you're Irish. And she's like, when it suits me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, man, they're tying it together.
Oh, it's really good.
Yeah. So it was just like excellent storytelling.
As it should be.
But yeah, I rewound it like 3 times. Like, is that because I thought maybe he went back to the cane that Eliza had picked out for him. Remember,
I thought it was a plainer one, but I did not.
But no,
I did not.
It had the lion heads on it. So I think that was the connection they were persecuting him for being Irish.
Yeah, which is very, good thematically connected there. And so we cut from them and that to Eliza's house. And Fitzroy tells Eliza and William that Nash and Moses are being questioned at Scotland Yard.
Because, and he says that they almost caught someone that they were looking for. And they said, oh, Fenton? Mm-hmm. And so William's frustrated because now that Fenton knows they're looking for him. Yeah. He's going to be in hiding, and he won't be going to the jeweler anytime soon. So they're not going to be able to get him there.
No. And so Fitzroy leaves through the back door because he doesn't want to
so nobody knows that he was there.
And then suddenly there's a knock on the front door, and William opens the door. Can I help you? And I was thinking, who's this going to be? And it's no one. It's no one I thought.
Right.
It's a man in a hat with mutton chops, and they bring him inside, and the man is one of the railway partners.
Right.
There are 6 partners, and he's one of the people who hired Nash
to do the investigation because he says, no offense, the police were incompetent.
Yes. And then apparently, since he found out that Nash's license was suspended, he was trying to find anyone who worked for Nash. And since he thought that Eliza worked for Nash, that's why he came to Miss Scarlet. That's why he showed up on the doorstep. So Eliza's like, I am not his employee.
And then she's like, but continue.
Yeah, continue.
Because this is important.
So the man says he's the conductor of the Jewel of the North now remembers a suspicious man in the days before the robbery. There was some drinking, and the guy started asking.
Seemed friendly at first, yeah.
But he started asking specifically about the trains and timetables. And William says, did he give a name? And the man says, Fenton, Jack Fenton.
Yep.
And at this moment, I'm like, this is suspicious. This guy shows up right after they're trying to find Fenton, and then gives Fenton.
True. Here's his address because he has the address.
So they go to Fenton's because the guy gives the address to.
Obviously, yeah.
They're at Fenton's, and William says crime doesn't pay, and then he's like, well,
Eliza's really unimpressed by his
by the shabby,
quarters.
Crime doesn't pay, and then he's like, well, actually, there's many criminals that make more than I do.
Yeah.
And Eliza teases, you'll have to save up to buy me that ring. And William chuckles.
I'm just like, that probably was a stab to the heart. Continue.
Yeah. William chuckles about that, and he says, no doubt, I'm sure you have expensive tastes. And Eliza says, actually, I don't. I didn't like any of those rings. I prefer a simple, small stone.
So tuck that away, William.
Yep, file it away. And he also, she also says,
as long as it's in a gift box, because she loves unwrapping things.
Which really, for a detective, as far as unwrapping,
it's a mystery.
That's totally like her.
It's adorable. Then she goes on to say Arabella would be a different story.
Yeah, and as soon as she mentions Arabella, we hear a click because William opens this box that's there, and it's a big box, and it's a big bomb.
Right, and it's apparently actually wired to explode because we heard the click.
Yeah, and William just says, get out. And Eliza at first didn't know what he was talking about and thought that he was just telling her to just
annoyed
get out.
Because she was talking about Arabella,
And she's like, I was just teasing you about Arabella. And William's like, the case is booby-trapped. There's a bomb inside. Go.
Yeah.
There's a tripwire. It's sprung. William wants Eliza to leave for her safety.
She won't leave.
She's like, no.
She asks, can you close the lid? He says there's a tripwire attached to the string, and he heard it click. he will attempt to close it when she's left the building.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I'm not going.
Yeah, she's been reading up on bombs, of course,
because she was delivered a bomb that was not set to explode.
And I love this part right here.
He's like begging her to leave.
Yeah, William says there are 3 wires. Do you know which one to cut? And Eliza says yes. And William's like, is that true? And she's like, mostly. And so she's there with the wire cutters. It's the lid is partially cracked. We see all 3 wires. She has it right there. She has it right there.
Yep.
And she cuts all 3.
She says it's only in crime novels that you have to do just one, just the one.
So just cuts it all. They'll talk about the fact that the bomb was very expensive and has more explosives than the others, and the fact that it was actually
it's built similarly, but it has more explosives, and it was set to explode. Yeah.
So they've noticed that there's like writing on one of the pieces of dynamite. Which, first off, dynamite is really unstable. Like they're like moving these boxes around all over the place. Like you have to set up dynamite to explode, but sometimes it'll just explode on its own.
Oh, that doesn't feel safe.
No, it's not.
So he wouldn't have even actually had to. He could have just like knocked against the box. There's bad.
I'm just saying, there's a chance. Yeah. There's like always a chance. There's a chance. So anyway, they find out that Galton and Hobbs is written on the dynamite, which we cut to the railway partner's house. This is like a switch of like, because guess who else uses dynamite for things?
The railway.
So we're at the railway partner's house, the office. This is Mr. Lyndhurst.
Yeah. And Eliza is asking about the new routes because she knows they're building new routes. And she says the construction uses industrial dynamite, obviously, to explode tunnels and whatnot.
It's an inside job.
Yep. She visited Galton and Hobbs earlier that day, and they were very helpful.
Oh,
so we know she knows things.
She's already got all the pieces.
And Lyndhurst knows that she knows things because he tries to get up to leave.
He's the robber. They were framing the Irish. Eliza says, "How do you know Jack Fenton?" And right at that moment, William walks in. And so they both have the information, and Lyndhurst is like already trapped, basically.
Yeah, he's done. He knows he's done for.
He confesses that Lyndhurst, he and Fenton served together in the war, and he sent himself the bomb to
throw them off. Yep.
And he
sent the dead bombs to misdirect. Yeah. And he also sent himself a bomb.
Yep.
And His discharge papers were actually signed by him. So Fenton's discharge papers. So he oversaw Fenton.
So, what I get here is he's like basically confessing, and he set the bomb, and also like they went to the house.
Yeah.
And so that's attempted murder. They were going to explode.
Right. He was trying to get rid of them.
Yeah. Like it's not just like, hey, I'm just going to just going to rob them. No, he was going to blow them up.
Yeah.
So we cut to Scotland.
He's not a good man.
No. So the main mystery of this has been pretty much resolved.
You're right.
We cut back to Scotland Yard.
Bombs. Yep.
Outside, William and Eliza are there, and Lyndhurst is being brought in cuffs. Right. And Eliza asks, why did he do it? And William's like, money, plain and simple.
Yeah, there's no political reason behind it. There was nothing to it other than just greed.
The Irish weren't even involved. Nope. They were just scapegoats.
Yep.
And Eliza asks, Nash and Moses, you'll set them free. And William's like, I will. Yeah. This is my case now.
He's overseeing the case again.
And there's a little bit of a pause there after he says that, because he shifts gears and he says, I know that things can be somewhat complex between us, talking about him and Eliza.
Right. This is his pipe dream.
But to be frank, I miss your company.
Yep.
And he suggests
starting up their monthly dinners again. Yeah. Just him and her.
Just them.
And
he says he says it's unconventional, but when did you ever do anything? When did you ever care about convention?
When has convention ever mattered to you?
Yeah.
And, Eliza is a good person. So she said, would Arabella be content with that? And William's face just goes,
yeah. And
so, she's not interested.
Eliza
or content.
Eliza just says, good day, William, and leaves because she knows the answer.
William is faced with the possibility that he does have to choose. He can't have his cake and eat it too. He can't have his secret private dinners with Eliza and also have a relationship with Arabella.
I don't think he was going to have it secret. I
guess maybe he would tell Arabella.
I believe he probably would because he's oblivious to the damage. Yeah. So then we leave that situation. So put that to the side.
Back burner.
We cut to William walks into his office and this is so satisfying, this moment.
Yep.
He walks in, he's like, "Gentlemen, I believe your work here is done. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like my office back." And I was like, and at this point in my notes, I was like, yeah,
kick him out.
so that happens. Hudson's like got that look on his face, like
he lost this round.
He did. Totally.
And then we flash to the boxing ring because Fitzroy's been training with Moses, and he's like, Fitzroy is just punching away, training with Moses, and Eliza arrives
and Fitzroy just starts like wailing it even more.
So Moses tells Fitzroy to take a break, and Eliza tells Moses that he's getting old because Fitzroy looks like he's making him tired.
Yeah.
And he says, "No, Fitzroy's just getting better, and he always tries harder when you're around." So I'm like, he has such a crush on Eliza. I don't hate it. And then Eliza lets Moses know that Fenton was arrested along with the two others, and she drops off a French dictionary.
Oh, as a joke, yeah. This is like a little bit like, oh, you might be needing this if you're going to Paris.
Right.
So,
but he says he's still mulling over the offer. So he hasn't made a decision because he lives one day to the next.
Yeah. So Eliza asks, "Will you be around for work in the meantime?" And Moses says, "Perhaps. I'll see what tomorrow brings," which is his thing, like, day to day. Eliza says, "You should really try having a long-term plan. It's my experience that having a list of objectives to tick off is satisfying indeed." And Moses says, "It is my experience that the more you want, the less you get," which is like, this is like, Moses drops these like truth bombs and like morals of the story regularly. This is one of them.
There's two entirely different approaches to life here. Eliza has a checklist, a plan. Everything she does is meticulously thought out. And Moses flies by the seat of his pants a lot, and that works for him.
Yep.
So, but I did like that line that the more you want, the less you get.
Which is a moral of this show to a certain degree.
She says that she wants many things, and he advises her to choose just one, which is, again, related to her and William's relationship and whether she can have it both ways.
And her job. Yeah. And so Fitzroy re-enters, all invigorated, ready to go back. He's ready, and Eliza leaves.
Yep.
And so we cut to Arabella's. William is there. He's late again. Arabella states it plainly, "You are in love with her." Like, she doesn't mince words.
She tells him to sit down, and I'm like, we need to talk. Sit down is never a good sign.
And so she says, "You are in love with her," speaking about Eliza. And she says, "Unless you can convince me otherwise."
He has no words.
He can't. There's nothing to say. And so
at first he tries to insist that their relationship is just friendship, but when she hits him with the truth, he can't come back from that.
No. And so Arabella says, "Well, I wish you luck. You will need it." And this is where she
warns William that Eliza's ambition will outweigh everything, even her feelings for him, which, I mean, has been true and false in the past. Ultimately, Eliza does tend towards justice and getting the police involved. Yeah. Like, she's not blinded by her ambition by any means, but this is Arabella and she's heartbroken. And Eliza will take cases even if William doesn't want her to take them.
Yeah, of course. She continues. Arabella says, "Nothing will ever be enough for her. Certainly not the future you envisage. Right. You can see yourself out." And she just leaves.
She leaves.
And he
sits there.
Yeah, he's just, the camera kind of does that like little bit of a hold on him just sitting, like just struck, like just sitting there in the chair alone.
Well, because the choice has been made for him. Yeah. He doesn't have to choose anymore between Eliza and Arabella, but he's also faced with this obvious, he can't have what he really envisions for himself. Just like
Arabella says,
Eliza
"I'm breaking up."
has a vision. Yeah. William has a vision.
Yeah. And so that is another thing he has to
reckon with.
So we cut from there to Eliza's office. It's in the morning. She walks in. She opens the curtains to let the light in. And there's no bomb there this time.
No bomb, but there's a tiny box.
A small box wrapped with a bow. And I'm like, because she mentioned wrapping. She loves wrapping.
She mentioned that she likes it in a gift box. To William, William,
is this a ring? Is this a ring in this box?
She opens it and
she looks disappointed.
Okay.
And we flash to Nash's.
I didn't catch her disappointed face.
Yeah, I was like, she would not be having that expression if it was
not a ring.
No. We cut to Nash's.
Right.
So Nash and Sons. Eliza enters in a fury. What is this?
Right. And she has a business card in her hand.
On the business card, it says Eliza Scarlet, Chief Investigator, Nash and Sons.
Yep.
And business cards wrapped in a box on her desk. She's livid.
She's so mad. But this is when Nash comes with his best offer yet.
Well,
really?
Yeah. Well, she says, must we have the same conversation because she doesn't want to work for Nash.
Right.
And Nash says, this is a different conversation.
Yes.
Nash shares that he
wants her to run his London office.
Because he's going to be going to Paris to set up the branch there that we heard about with Moses, because Moses might go there to Paris.
Right. To outrun his past.
Yes.
So she would actually be working with Nash, not for him.
Is a good distinction.
And she'd have a staff of 20 men, and then he lays it all out for her. And this is where I'm like, he knows her so well.
Go.
He's like, imagine if it were a woman running an agency this size. What kind of signal would that send out to those who want to follow in your footsteps?
And
and I'm just like,
Yep. And Eliza says, it's a very persuasive speech. Did you pay someone to have it written for you? And Nash says, of course I did. And Eliza says, if I did work with you, I'd need my own office with my name on the door.
Yep.
And Nash turns and says, Thomas, to this guy who's in the background.
Yep.
And this man who is by this door, he moves aside to reveal
that she has an office
with her name
on the door. On a brass plate. It's real official.
And so Nash says, do we have a deal?
What do you say? Do we have a deal?
Puts his hand out to her.
End scene.
End scene, end episode, end season. Yeah. So we don't know.
That's a cliffhanger.
We don't know if she says yes or no. If she's going to take his thing, or like take the office with the 20 men to do the stuff, or is Moses going to be in Paris? We don't know all these things.
We don't know where Moses is going to be. We don't know what William's going to do.
William is just left, still in Arabella's. He's still there. He didn't even leave. There.
He might just take up residence there. Be like, no, I'm not leaving.
Yeah, can't even leave. There's just too much. So
there's a lot up in the air, and I forgot that they were setting this up for Moses to potentially not be in the next season. So I'm nervous.
Yeah, well, I think this is one of those things where the show, maybe they had a contract for so long, and this is where contract negotiations with actors. Let's see when this happens.
You have a lot of stuff. We're gonna let the dust settle.
We're gonna be flexible.
Yeah.
So.
But so Nash is still in the picture though, for sure.
Yeah.
William is back in the picture.
It's Miss Scarlet and the Duke.
Arabella's gonna get him forcibly removed soon if he doesn't leave.
No, he's gonna do that. I was just joking about it. But yeah, it's so that great season. Yeah. So much happens.
And we saw Fitzroy, who still admires, and he's learning all of Moses' boxing skills. So much.
Still love Pentagon.
Yeah.
Ish.
Hexagon. No, Pentagon.
It'd be a Pentagon or a rectangle. Yeah. Well, that's something.
It's still a shape with more than three sides.
So So thank you again for watching with us and listening to us talk about the show.
Right. We'll be back in the winter for season 4. You can catch up with seasons 1, 2, and 3 if you missed anything. Go back in time, listen to all 3 seasons to prepare for January's premiere.
Yeah.
You can find us at witf.org/mosaic. And if you want to make a gift to support while you're there, we would definitely appreciate it.
And we can't wait to hear for your thoughts about this season. Email us at ps@witf.org, or you can comment on this week's short on Instagram at witf.org.
No, or just WITF.org.
Oh,
no dots.
Sorry. At WITF.org.
It's hard because you're used to the website. Yeah.
And or you can leave a comment below this if you're watching us on YouTube.
Yeah, you can leave us a comment on YouTube too. So this has been a wild ride.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted, but I'm very excited about season 4.
Same.
Kicking off this January. So yeah, we'll see you in January.